Well, hey guys, my name is Travis. Some of you might know this, but I am the campus pastor for our Sertoma campus on the west side of Sioux Falls. And every Sunday over at Sertoma, we start our day off with what we call morning huddle. In that morning huddle, we gather all of our volunteers together in a big circle, and myself or one of our other leaders will share a little bit about the day. We'll talk about what the message is going to be about. We'll talk about what events we have taking place, maybe any goals that we have set out for the day, really anything that we think would be helpful for our teams to know. And then because we like to have fun together, we go around the big circle and we all say our name, we say where we're serving on that day, and then we give an answer to a question that we have. But before I go on any further, at all of our campuses, network churches, can we just put it up for our amazing volunteer teams? Can we just put it up for our amazing volunteer teams? If you can hear my voice right now, there's a volunteer that is currently crushing it. So we are so thankful for our volunteers. But about this question, right? So this question, oftentimes it relates to the message that we're going to be giving that day or the series that we're in. Maybe it's topical to the time of year that we're in or something happening socially in our world at that time. Really creative questions, tons of fun in huddle. So let me give you an example of what a good huddle question would be. Something like this might happen at this time of year. I might say something like, hey, Thanksgiving is just around the corner. What is one thing that you are thankful for? See, like really creative questions, like really easy to answer, really a lot of fun. We're essentially creative geniuses over at Sertoma. So what I'd love to do right now is I'd love for all of us to play along. At all of our campuses, network churches, by the way, campuses, network churches, we're so thrilled that you're here. Sertoma, what's up? At all of our campuses, we're going to play along. Think of one thing that you are thankful for. Right now, think of one thing that you are thankful for. And when you have it, just put your hand up in the air, and we're going to go around the biggest circle ever, and we're all going to say our name, where we're from, and the one thing that we're thankful for. And we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. But I'm going to give you a sneak peek of what it would look like if we did. I've been doing huddles for a long time. I kind of know what they look like. So here's what it's going to look like. The first person will say something like this. Well, my name is Tom. And I'm working in the production area today, and I'm running the lights, and I am thankful for my family. Okay, awesome, cool. Thanks, Tom. Right, we're all thankful for our family, really good. Okay, next person. Okay, well, my name's Kim, and I'm doing the coffee today. Whoop, whoop, go coffee. And I'm thankful for my husband. Okay, cool, great. Your husband, kind of similar to family, but we'll let that slide. Okay, next person. Oh, definitely my kids. I'm for sure thankful for my kids. And I'm just kind of thinking, okay, so kids are for sure part of your family, but that's fine. Let's go on to the next person. Oh, gosh, I don't know. I mean, they all kind of took mine. I'm just so thankful for my family. Jesus, because that's what we say at church, right? When we don't know the answer to a question, we say Jesus. And it goes on like that. People are thankful for their work or for their friends or for their health, things like this. Listen, I'm pro-family. I want to make it really clear. I'm pro-family. But what I've found is that when we ask these really cliche questions in huddle, we end up getting some really cliche answers and response. And after the 13th person says they're thankful for their family, part of me just wants to say, is anyone thankful for anything else? Right? Like we have indoor plumbing, the internet, cars, the moon, Luke Combs songs, a leaf blower, like anything besides your family, just to spice it up a little bit, right? So that's part of the reason why I'm so thankful for this series that we're in and why I'm so excited about it. If you've not been around, the series is called No Thanks, and it's all about being thankful for things that most people wouldn't even think to be thankful for. But even more uncommon than like a Luke Combs song or like a leaf blower or something like that, we've been talking about being thankful for things that at face value, no one should ever be thankful for. Things like going through really hard trials in our lives, being thankful for things like the failures that we've experienced in our life. And if you've wondered what that would look like to be thankful for either of those two things, you should check out the first 2 weeks of the series online. But for today, as we get started, we're going to get started by looking at a couple of statistics. And these stats, they're going to have a blank in them that we're going to pay off a little bit later. We're going to fill in that blank a little bit later, but we're going to get started with a stat here with a blank in it. Let's see it. Historical data over the last 3 decades indicates that Americans are twice as blank as they used to be, but are no happier. However, during that same time, divorce rates have doubled, teen suicides have tripled, and depression rates have soared. Next stat, youth that are blank, the same word, have higher rates of anxiety, higher rates of depression, and higher rates of drug and alcohol abuse. So whatever this blank is, right, it relates to being less happy. It relates to more anxiety, more depression, more likelihood for substance abuse. So the thing that we're going to be thankful for today is for what these people don't have. Whatever it is that they have, whatever this blank thing is, I think if it relates to unhappiness, anxiety, depression, substance abuse, I think that we can all agree that we don't want it, right? So what is it that they have? What is this blank thing that all of them have? Well, before I tell you, I want to tell you about a guy named Solomon. Solomon was a king, and he's actually the son of King David, of David and Goliath. And when Solomon became king after his dad, God gave Solomon a really cool offer. He said, "Hey, Solomon, now that you're king, ask me for whatever you want, and I'll give it to you. Whatever it is that you want, just ask me, and I'll give it to you." Now, if I got that offer from God, I know it's kind of cliche, I want to fly. Like, I really, really want to fly. So that'd be mine. Solomon, he asked for something a little bit smarter, a little bit more boring in my opinion, but smarter. He said, "God, I want to be wise, and I want to be knowledgeable." So God honored that request. In his perfect kindness, he made Solomon the wisest, most knowledgeable man to ever walk the earth. And we're going to pick up Solomon's story in a book that Solomon wrote called Ecclesiastes. And we're going to look at this book because Solomon, in this book, he unpacks what amounts to this fascinating social experiment. And this experiment that Solomon does, it has a lot to do with the stats that I shared at the beginning. So let's take a look at what Solomon wrote. So he said this. He said, "I tried cheering myself with wine and embracing folly, my mind still guiding me with this wisdom that God gave me. I wanted to see what was good for people to do under the heavens during the few days of their lives." So Solomon's unpacking this experiment. He says, okay, so I'm going to try to cheer myself. I'm going to try to find happiness during the few short days that we have under the heavens or during this life that we have. I'm going to see if I can find some happiness. That's the experiment. Okay, here's what he goes on to say. So he says, "So I undertook great projects. I built houses for myself and planted vineyards. I made gardens and parks and planted all kinds of fruit trees in them. I made reservoirs to water those groves of flourishing trees. I had male and female servants and had other servants who were born in my house. I also owned more herds and flocks than anyone in Jerusalem." So what he's saying is, hey, I wanted to find happiness, so I started to acquire all this stuff, right? I started building the best houses. I started drinking the best wine. I started having all these servants and all these different things to see if those things would make me happy. He goes on to say this. He says, "I amassed silver and gold for myself and the treasures of kings and provinces. I acquired male and female singers and a harem as well, the delights of a man's heart." Goes on to say, "I became greater by far than anyone in Jerusalem before me. In all this, my wisdom stayed with me. I denied myself nothing my eyes desired. I refused my heart no pleasure." Again, in this experiment that he does, he acquires everything. And again, God, he gave him this wisdom and knowledge. He gave him all this talent, so he was actually able to do it. He was able to pile together all these resources, amass all this wealth, get all this status. And so he does it, and then he has an observation kind of after he does it. Here's what it says. He says, "Yet, when I surveyed all that my hands had done and what I had toiled or what I had worked so hard to achieve, everything was meaningless, a chasing after the wind. Nothing was gained under the sun." See, he got everything, he acquired everything, he hit every goal and metric that he wanted, and yet at the end he said he had nothing. He said this happiness, this cheer, this joy that he was looking for, it was like trying to catch air. He couldn't take hold of it. We're gonna fill in the blanks of our stats right now. So let's go back to those stats. We're going to fill in the blank that we had earlier. So back to the stats. Historical data over the last 3 decades indicates that Americans are twice as rich, that's the blank, as they used to be, but they're no happier. However, during the same time, divorce rates have doubled, teen suicides have tripled, and depression rates have soared. Next stat, youth that are wealthy, that's the blank, youth that are wealthy have higher rates of anxiety, higher rates of depression, higher rates of drug and alcohol abuse. Now, before I go on too far, there's a caveat to this. I want to make something really, really clear. These stats, Solomon's experiment, they don't say that the acquisition of wealth, the gathering of possessions cause all of these things, all this unhappiness or depression or anxiety or substance abuse. It doesn't cause it, but the experiment and the stats make really, really clear that they don't solve those issues either. Okay, wealth, the gathering of possessions, it doesn't cause all of these problems, but it certainly doesn't solve these issues either. See, Solomon's experiment and these stats, they actually reveal one of the most common phrases in all of human history, and what's that? Money can't buy happiness. It reveals that money can't buy happiness. And intellectually, we all kind of know this, right? We all kind of get that money and stuff isn't going to make us happy ultimately. Even think back to our huddle question, the thing that we're thankful for. We weren't thankful for money. The thing that you had in your mind, you weren't thankful for money or stuff. No, you were thankful for your family. You were thankful for your friends. You were thankful for your health, all these other things. You weren't thankful for stuff. We know this, right? We know that money can't buy happiness. Or do we? So every Thursday, I head over to a high school in Sioux Falls, and I hang out with a young man named Aiden. Aiden is 15 years old. I started mentoring him when he was in 6th grade. He's a great kid, really interesting, really funny, and kind of quirky. I love hanging out with him. And when we hang out together, sometimes we'll play this game called Loaded Questions. And so the other day, we were playing the game Loaded Questions, and the question came up, if 50 people were surveyed who are in your age group, how many of them would say that they are happier than you are? I was like, man, this is a really good question. This could be a good huddle question for the future. And I was like, I wonder what Aiden's going to say. He's a pretty happy kid. He doesn't have this perfect life, just like any of us. He has his own issues, but he's a pretty happy kid. So I was curious, what is Aiden going to say? And he said, well, I think of the 50 people in my age group, I think 50 are probably happier than me. I was like, Aiden, come on, man. 50? That's everybody. You think everybody in your age group is happier than you? Why? He said, I don't know. They're probably rich. I live in a townhome. So we all know, right, that money can't buy happiness. We all know that the accumulation of stuff isn't what's going to make us happy. Or do we? 50. 50 people are happier than me because 50 people are rich. I live in a townhome. 50 people are happier than me because they have a better house than I do. 50 people are happier than me because 50 people have more than me. Money can't buy happiness? Somebody should have told Aiden because he thinks it can. Here's the thing, though. I think somebody did tell Aiden. Again, he's a smart kid. He's 15 years old. He's heard it. He's heard that money can't buy happiness, but I think that he's seen something a little bit different. I think, like you and I have, I think he's seen this constant comparison that takes place in our culture, this constant striving and longing for more and more, better and better, newer and newer. See, I think he knows and he's heard one thing, money can't buy happiness, but I think he's seen something else. And like all of us, I think that we know money can't buy happiness, but we kind of like to try because it kind of looks like it can. And so maybe if we could just try, maybe it would work for us. So what do we do with this, right? We know one thing, but we kind of believe and do another. We know money can't buy happiness, but we kind of think that it might be able to. What is the answer to this issue? Well, I think the answer is actually what this series is all about. I think the answer is thankfulness. Thankfulness. I think thankfulness is a really helpful tool for life. I think we're happy when we're thankful. I think we're more content when we're thankful. There's actually studies out there that says that you're incapable of being both anxious and thankful at the same time, which is really amazing. Like being thankful is a powerful tool, and I think that we all kind of know that. There's a lot of benefits of being thankful. But I also think that being thankful is kind of similar to exercising. We know that exercising can provide us a lot of really great benefits, but it's also really difficult to get our butts to the gym. And like living in one of the wealthiest countries in the world, in the U.S., is even more challenging, right? Being thankful for what we have while living in the U.S. is kind of like being on a diet and working at Chick-fil-A. Even though that's probably a bad example because like Chick-fil-A calories are Jesus calories and those don't really count. But no, like being thankful for what we have while living in one of the wealthiest, richest countries in the entire world is nearly impossible because we're always surrounded by so much better. right? Like for me, like I really like my car. I think my car's fine. It gets me from point A to point B. My neighbor across the street, he has this beautiful dark blue F-150 pickup with chrome everywhere. He hauls his camper with it. I'm just like, dude, I like my car. I love your truck. Like that is a slick looking truck. My house, I enjoy my house. We put a lot of effort in our house. I've talked about my yard in the past. I like my house. But the houses across the street from me, they have a little bit bigger lots. They have a little bit better views. The houses are just a little bit bigger. See, I like my house, but I'd like the houses across the street just a little bit better. It's hard to be thankful for what we have when we're surrounded by so much better. And those are just my examples. You have your own. Maybe for you it's houses and cars as well. Maybe for you it's clothes. Maybe it's bicycles or campers or boats, whatever it is for you. It's hard to be thankful for what we have when we have so much better around us. So I want to try something else. I want to try another angle on this thankfulness thing. I want to try being thankful for something a little bit more uncommon. Instead of being thankful for what we have, because that's really hard, I want us to try today to be thankful for what we don't have. I want us to try today to be thankful for what we don't have, to be thankful for less. Being thankful for what we have could be really, really great, could be really, really helpful. I think that we should do that, but it's hard. So I want to try something different. I think that we should try to be thankful for what we don't have. And I want to illustrate this by using a tool here. This is a hot pink electric balloon pump. I wanted a black one, but we had a pink one, and I'm trying to be thankful for what I have. So here it is. It's a hot pink electric balloon pump. I'm not embarrassed by it at all. And this right here is a balloon, but this balloon, it represents us. This balloon represents our lives, and the stuff that we're going to put into the balloon, it represents all the resources that we have access to with our lives, all the stuff that we put into our hearts, into our bodies, into our souls, into our mind. So this is us, and what we put into it is all the things that get into our lives. Now, we're going to start off by the things that we need for life, right? Things like air to breathe, which is a really appropriate illustration because we're going to put air in it, spot on. And then we need food and transportation and clothing and shelter, all these different things. So we'll put that in there. Okay? So, and this is fine. Like us, like we're this, and look at how well we're carrying all these resources. All these things we were meant to carry with our life, right? We need things like food and shelter and clothing and transportation. We need all of these things for our lives. Okay, so I'm not mad about any of this stuff, and look at how well we're carrying it. This looks like a really, really healthy life. We have about exactly how much we need, and we're happy with it, right? So this looks like many of us. Now we're going to do another balloon. And we're going to start it the same exact way because, again, every single person needs all that stuff. Okay, so this is food, shelter, clothing, transportation, air, all these different things. And some people don't even have all of these things, or some people struggle to get all of these things in their life. So I want to honor that, but I also want to know that across our campuses and network churches, many of us have this. And many of us have this pretty easily. And when we have everything that we need, something kind of crazy happens, doesn't it? Let me give you an example. So say we have all the clothing that we need. We have all the stuff that we would need clothing-wise to get us through life, but we have an event coming up. We have a party coming up that we need to get a new outfit for. Maybe we just saw a new outfit. We look really good in it. So we have all the clothes that we need, but we'd want something just a little bit more, so we do it. Okay? So we have all the clothes we need. We get a little bit more. Let me give you a different example. Say we really like camping. We really like to go camping with our family. We have a tent. A tent is all we need for shelter for camping, but it's also kind of inconvenient with all the kids. We need food and all these different things. So we kind of want to get a camper. And that's fine. So we get a camper, right? So we really only needed a tent, but we got a camper. And listen, I want to make really clear, I'm not mad about any of this. Okay, like it's okay to have clothes. It's okay to have more clothes than what you need. That's fine. You can look nice. It's okay to have a camper. It's fun to have a camper. It's fun to go camping with your family and have a camper. But if we keep going down this road, something kind of scary starts to happen. And actually, the Apostle Paul, he talks about it in a letter he wrote to a guy named Timothy. Here's what Paul said to Timothy. He said, "Those who want to get rich fall into temptation and a trap, and into many foolish and harmful desires that plunge people into ruin and destruction. Paul says to Timothy, hey, just be really, really careful, okay? Be really, really careful about gathering a bunch of resources, gathering more than what you need, being rich or trying to be rich in some of these different ways. Just be really, really careful, because if you do that too much, it can start to be really harmful. It can start to be really foolish, and actually, it can maybe even lead you to some ruin and to some destruction in your life. Now, let me show you what that could look like. So say we go shopping again, and so we got everything we need. We even got that additional outfit, but then we'd maybe like to get some more clothes as well, but whoops, we actually don't have the money to pay for it. So instead of paying for it with cash or paying for it with the money that we have in our account, we put it on a credit card. So we put it on a credit card, and after we use that credit card once, it actually makes it a lot easier to use it again. And then an emergency comes up, so then we started to use it again, and then we use it again and again and again, and then now we kind of have like a pretty uncomfortable amount of credit card debt. And that's what I feel like a trap might have been set for us, and it might lead to some harmful stuff in our lives. Or let's take the camper, for example. Again, we got the camper, but in order to pay for the camper, Dad, he needed to get a second job. Okay, we didn't want to go into credit card debt, so Dad got a second job, and now instead of being home every night for dinner, he's actually working. So he's not getting to spend as much time with the kids anymore, which is kind of tough. And then he's also he's really tired. Like, work is really hard. It's really stressful. He's working his butt off all day long with a bunch of hours, and by the time the weekend comes, he just wants to rest. He just wants to rest. He bought this camper to go and hang out with his family. Now he's too tired to use it. Can anybody relate to anything like that? So here's the deal. There's a cost to the acquisition of stuff. There's a cost to fall into these traps, right? There's a financial cost, and we see it. We see like a financial stretch happening. Comparing the two balloons together, this looks a little bit warped. It's starting to look a little bit stretched in some ways. So there's a financial cost. There's also a time cost. This stuff, it brings us stress and anxiety into our lives. But there's another cost to it. And this is something that is really, really near and dear to me. Guys, this message in a lot of ways is for me. See, I love stuff. I love stuff. I actually kind of apologetically love stuff. When I'm at home and I have free time, man, I spend it scrolling. Like, I'm looking at trucks like my neighbors. I'm looking at houses like my neighbors across the street. I love stuff, and sometimes that's not so bad, but I fall into this trap that I'm scrolling, and then I look up, and I see my little 1-year-old beautiful daughter waddling around our living room. And I start to realize that there's a cost to this. There's a cost to this striving for more and more, for always wanting better and better. There's a soul cost to it, because the deal is that we only have so much room in our balloon. We only have so much room in our lives, and if we fill it with all this stuff, we have no room for the stuff that really matters to us. The stuff that we said we were so thankful for, we don't have room for it. It's not that we love stuff more than those things, it's that we don't have any room for it. But we still search for it, right? And we still long, and we still strive, and we still want better and better and better and better and better until we don't have any more room. Until there's nothing left. Until we fall into this trap of foolish and harmful desires that end up destroying us. See, there's a cost. There's a time cost, there's a financial cost, but there's also a cost to our soul. We only have so much room. We only have so much room in our lives, and if we fill it with stuff, and if we fill it with striving and comparing and scrolling and shopping, we have no room left for the things that really matter in our lives. We have to be thankful for what we don't have, because if we get everything we want, we have no room for the things that really matter for us. We have to be thankful for what we don't have. I'm just going to finish with this. I want to pay off Solomon's experiment because he was actually longing for something really important. He was longing for joy and happiness. And he was the wisest, most knowledgeable man to have ever lived. And he actually came to a conclusion. I think it's really important that we share it. So here's what it says. This is the conclusion of his experiment. He says, a person can do nothing better than to eat and drink and find satisfaction in their own toil. This, too, I see, is from the hand of God. He says, for without God, who can eat or find enjoyment? To the person who pleases God, God gives wisdom, knowledge, and happiness. Solomon says, you want happiness? You want enjoyment for your life? He's got so much credibility, guys. We have to listen to him. He has everything we could ever dream of. And what's his conclusion? God. Only God. That's it. He's got piles of wealth, a bunch of servants, beautiful houses, trees, fruit, wine, everything that you could ever dream of. And his conclusion is, it's all meaningless. The only thing that can bring happiness is God. That's it. Who can find enjoyment? The one who searches for God. We have to be thankful for what we don't have, because if our lives are so full with the stuff that we're searching, we have no room to search for God. Our lives get so full, our eyes and our ears are so full of stuff, we can't hear and we can't see God. We can't hear and we can't see those amazing gifts that God has given for our lives. All those things that we are thankful for. We stuff ourselves with so much stuff and striving and scrolling that we have no room to see God. But He's the answer. He's it. He's how we get happiness. He's how we get enjoyment. We have to be thankful for what we don't have because it'll leave room for what really matters. God. And all these amazing gifts that God has for our lives. Let's pray. God, we thank you for who you are. We thank you so much for your word. We thank you for Solomon and the gift that you gave him so that he could model this for us, so that we don't have to strive. We don't have to search. We don't have to wonder what can really make us happy. He told us, and you told him, you're it. So God, just help us. Help us, because this is hard for us. We're surrounded by so much stuff all the time. Help us to keep our eyes on you. Help us to not fill our eyes and our ears with all this stuff, all this distraction. Help us to keep our eyes on you. Lord, we know that you can do it. We know that you are the answer. Just help us, please, God. Help us. We love you. We know you're better than everything else. We pray in the name of Jesus. Amen.